There comes a moment, not marked by the clock or the calendar, when something ancient inside you begins to stir. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it simply hums beneath the noise of your daily life, waiting to be heard. It may come as a subtle unease, a restlessness in your chest, a gentle but undeniable sense that something no longer fits. You wake up and look around at the life you've built, perhaps even a life others would envy, and you can't help but feel like a guest in a house that no longer feels like home. The colors feel duller, the conversations more hollow, the roles you play less convincing. And while everything may look fine on the surface, underneath, something is shifting. You don't know why. You don't know what it means. But you know, with a certainty that defies logic, that something deeper is calling you. Not louder, deeper. And if you're quiet enough, if you resist the urge to drown it out with distractions or explain it away with reason, you'll realize that this feeling is not your enemy. It's your initiation. It's the signal flare from the part of you that remembers why you came here in the first place. Not to perform, not to impress, not to survive, but to live fully, to live freely, to live truthfully. And maybe for the first time, you're beginning to sense that the life you've been taught to want isn't the same as the life your soul is aching to create. And slowly, the way you move through the world begins to shift. You no longer chase things with the same desperate urgency. The need to prove, to perform, to be perceived a certain way begins to soften. Because once you've touched the place inside you that remembers who you truly are, the performance begins to feel unnecessary. You begin to value presence over perfection. You begin to notice the sacred in the ordinary, the way sunlight filters through the trees, the quiet rhythm of your breath, the brief yet profound moments of connection with another soul. Life stops being something to manage or conquer, and becomes something to meet with reverence. Not because your circumstances have changed, but because your relationship to them has. You realize you've spent so much of your life trying to become something acceptable, something impressive, something safe. But what if you were never meant to become anything in particular? What if your true task was always to unbecome everything that isn't really you? So what's left is something raw and real and radiant. That doesn't mean giving up ambition. It means letting your ambition arise from authenticity instead of fear. It means asking yourself not, what will make me look successful, but what feels aligned with the truth of who I am. And something else begins to shift. The way you speak to yourself. The inner voice that once echoed with judgment and pressure begins to soften. You start to recognize that most of the criticism you carry wasn't born from truth, but from conditioning, from voices that were never yours to begin with. And in that recognition, a quiet kind of freedom begins to bloom. You no longer need to argue with your past, nor escape it. You begin to hold it with compassion, understanding that every version of you was doing the best they could with what they knew, even the parts you've tried to forget. Even the parts you felt ashamed of. They were trying to survive. They were longing to belong. And now, instead of exiling those parts, you begin to integrate them, not to justify the pain, but to reclaim the wholeness of who you are. The journey back to yourself is rarely a straight line. It spirals, it circles, it weaves in and out of darkness and light. There will be days when you feel illuminated and aligned, and others where you feel lost again. That's not failure. That's the rhythm of becoming. Growth is not linear, it's tidal. It pulls you inward before it pushes you outward. And every time you return to center, you arrive with deeper wisdom, with greater humility, with more space to hold the full spectrum of your human experience. You begin to recognize that your life isn't a puzzle to solve or a mountain to conquer. It's a conversation, a living, breathing dialogue between your soul and the infinite intelligence that animates all things. And when you stop demanding certainty and start embracing curiosity, you open yourself to receive the answers that were waiting for you all along. Not as commands, not as formulas, but as whispers, as nudges, as that strange inner knowing that you can't explain, but can't ignore. That's how truth speaks, not in shouts, but in stillness, not in control, but in trust. You start to feel a new kind of confidence, not the loud kind that announces itself, but the grounded kind that needs no performance. The kind that arises from knowing yourself, from trusting yourself, from standing rooted in your own energy. And people around you notice, even if they can't articulate what's different. Some will be drawn to you. Others will feel unsettled by your liberation. Not everyone will understand your becoming, and that's okay. You're no longer living to be understood by everyone. You're living to be aligned with yourself. And that shift, subtle, powerful, irreversible, is what opens the door to a different kind of life. One that doesn't just look good from the outside, but feels good from the inside.